It's my pleasure to introduce Barbara Reeder. I'm going to do a little bit of a long intro to give everybody a flavor of how I know you and a little bit of what you do. So I met Barbara Reeder. Someone gave me Barbara as a gift, and it was a gift that was given to me because my mother had passed, and I was really sort of upside down, as everybody is when family pass or people close to them are no longer a part of their lives. And I really was never into the psychic thing, I was into astrology, but I hadn't met anybody that that sounded like what they were talking about had any relevance to what was going on in my life. So I just didn't make it a habit of trying to find psychics. And so they didn't even tell me what you did or what I was about to experience. But what I was about to experience was so extraordinary that it changed my perception of what it means to be in the here and now and what it means to be in the here and thereafter. And Barbara is, as you can see, does not look like she's doing any crazy. She looks like a soccer mom, basically. And
I pass for normal. That's what they say.
And so, so the whole experience was quite interesting. But the bottom line was, as soon as she went into connecting in this other world, which she will tell you about because I'm probably not doing it justice now, she connected with my mother, and she spoke to me in a way. I remember one thing was something about my hair, and my mother always had something to say about my hair. And she also told me something that only my mother and I knew. And she told me about what was happening through my mother's transition, and then all of these symbolic experiences my mother was having on the other side. And one example I will bring up later because it'll help talk a little bit about what you do. And then after that experience, or during that experience, Barbara, my mother, through Barbara, was appreciative that I was looking after my brother. My brother, full disclosure, my brother committed suicide not too long ago, and our fear was always that he might. He had drug issues that were very deep. He had a tough lifetime. And so I knew it was very important for my mother to make sure, and I felt that way too, to look after my brother. And when my mother passed, my brother arranged to do a little ceremony in her apartment, which he continued to live in. And we did candles, and he played Etta James' song, At Last. So one night, 6 months later, after I'd seen Barbara, he contacted me in the middle of the night, and he said, I want to kill myself. There's no reason for me to live. And I, of course, went flying to his apartment. The door was open, and when I went in, the TV was on, and I sat next to him. And as I sat, the song on the television was At Last. And this is my introduction to Barbara, because she gave me some incredibly helpful tips on how to be aware that my mother is around and that there are people or spirits around us all the time. So Barbara, welcome.
Thank you. Beautifully said.
Welcome. And you know, I've seen you several times and other people have passed, but I think the thing that everybody really wants to know, first of all, is how did you know and when did you know that you had this ability?
You know, it's something, I was so little, and we lived at my grandmother's house. And my grandmother, they owned a car dealership, my grandparents. Both parents worked. And I had a lady who took care of me. And we were right next to the funeral home. So there were no kids in the neighborhood. So I remember that spirits walking through the house.
Oh my goodness.
And they would come over and talk to me. And then I had imaginary playmates, and one was a little girl, and I kept saying, she lives up the road. And I described her, and it's a child that had died.
Oh.
And so my parents, my father, who was an Air Force colonel, said, we have to do something about this child. This is not good. So they found a neighborhood where there were kids around, but I always just knew things. I'd say to my mother, so-and-so is going to call. And she'd say, that's impossible, they're in Europe. And they would call. That sense of knowing, because once you're open,
Yeah.
I think it really opened when, a lot of times you'll hear this from psychics, I had an impact to the third eye center. I was about 4 and I was running, and those big clawfoot tables, I went bam, right in the third eye center into the clawfoot, and both eyes were black, and after that it really opened.
Oh, wow.
And they say that a lot with star children and others, any kind of impact will open up the third eye. But you just think everyone sees what you see, because you don't, usually you can't articulate all that you're feeling. You just don't have the vocabulary or the knowledge. Plus, I didn't know anyone who did this. I was raised in this incredibly Catholic family. Catholicism has a lot of things, mystery things you're supposed to believe. So I think that kind of fit me quite nicely.
Yeah.
But I just went along and had a sense of things. I know that if there was going to be a car accident, I would hear it in my head like, look, and then I would look and avoid the accident. So I know that the guides were always, always with me.
Interesting.
But this was never anything I thought I would do.
Right. And then, just before I ask you the next important, what is the star? You said star children. What are star children?
There are souls, again, a lot of this work, you have to believe that there's something other than the dimension we're in.
Right.
And that at certain times in history of the earth, people come down here and there's a group of souls, they call them star children. Sometimes people call them indigo children. And they're these amazing souls that know stuff. And you see them, you'll meet them, they're on the earth now, a lot of them. But they just have a heightened, I guess, vibration and frequency, and they're intuitive. Right. And sometimes you'll look at pictures and they'll have like these light orb balls around their heads. People don't even notice. They think, oh, it must have been the lighting.
Right.
So you can pick them out usually, and they're coming more into power because people we're looking up. People are not looking at politicians or the clergy or any of those old things that always seem to bring people through. It's looking deep within and looking above.
That's really worth repeating. So we are definitely in a disruptive time in every way, and you're right. If the politicians and the clergy and all of the sort of go-to sources of spiritual help are not there, then you do have to look within, don't you?
And again, so much of my upbringing was, to be a good, I almost became a nun, to be this goodness and this what's truth. And I think, boy, did this prepare me for a time now. I have no doubt what is truth. But there's a lot of issue with that on the earth right now, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, what is truth and what is the right thing to do? And if you don't know that, if you don't, my father always said, there's no compromising with truth.
Yeah.
And so I think that I go by that in a way, and that's why my clients, everyone seems wobbly right now. It's not just the news, it's just the energy, and internet and everything is so fast, and so it's really about disconnecting and having silence.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, there was an old, I guess it was a poem, The Desiderata. And the first line was, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. And I had it on my wall as a kid. And then now it hits me sometimes. It pops into my head. And by the way, don't deny these things that pop into your head.
Yeah.
That's guidance. Like when you say, what was that word? And the word pops in. That's everyone has spirit guides. Everyone has angels. And they will guide us. If we are calm enough to hear them, it really works.
And so what other things you were so helpful for me, especially, and since, but when my mother died, I was very, very, very interested after I saw you to be open and to be more open. I always felt I was open, but to really be open and aware of what were those messages I was getting and how was I getting them. So what are some of the things that are typical?
When there's so much grief, they can't come into our dreams and guide us. So the spirits will do funny things, like you'll find dimes. Or the lights will flicker, or you'll look at your plant and it's like going woof, woof, woof along. They let you know, I'm okay over here, I'm fine. There is life over here. And now each soul vibrates differently, but you are an old master, and it takes a lot to shock you. You know, yes, you're wonderful to read for because you are so aware and so refined a soul. And so you have problems handling things sometimes. Imagine if someone doesn't have your level, how terrifying it can be. And I have never advertised. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's people are called to me, the ones that the angels have something to say to. This was not my first choice of career. I never in the world couldn't even imagine doing this. And I think that's probably why it works so well, because I have no ego attached to this.
And on that note, it's very interesting, and this is so true. I'll find myself meeting somebody new or somebody in a place that I didn't think I would be, or some odd situation where I don't think I should be here, or like I wish I were doing something else. And then I'll start to have a conversation with someone, and they're telling me things that the only thing I think of is they have to see Barbara. They have to see Barbara. And I know that meeting or that situation came about strictly because they were meant to see you, and I was there to facilitate that.
It works like that.
I'm positive of it.
It's fascinating how they do it.
Yeah, and I know that I probably won't see that person again, and it doesn't matter because as they were talking to me, I thought, I don't even know this person, but I know this person should be seeing Barbara, and it's happened quite a few times, as you know, and so yes, that's why people find you.
Conduit.
No, but I think other people are too, and that's why you never need to advertise.
I mean, never. And I think my clients like it that I'm exclusive, and I don't hang out a shingle, and I don't do boat tours or anything like that. I mean,
but I think the fact that people who know you, I'm sure, meet people who need to see you, and so a little bit more of an explanation now, because it is. People are more interested than ever before. So when somebody comes to see you, there's something that happens in the room. And sometimes I've come to see you and you'll say, your friend Robert is here and he wants to see you. He wants to talk to you. And I've just walked in the door. And I'm like, okay. And I think, whoa, that was fast.
And a lot of times they come, it's almost like an hour before the reading, I invite the spirits in, because so I'm all ready to go when my client arrives and they're all ready to go. And it's so funny because I try to always have beautiful flowers on my table, and that day I could not get them arranged right. And that's
so
like
funny.
He's a florist, and of course he's probably going, no, that one goes there, this one goes there, and I'm just like, oh, Flui, you do it, I can't. But especially because he has been to me, so he knew the room, he was familiar with that energy, And the love is so strong for you. And it was another sign for you to see. You can talk to him every day. I'm sure he's there for you every day.
No, definitely.
And, kind of guiding us along. And they can't prevent us from a lesson we have to learn.
Yeah.
But boy, they sure can make it softer, gentler, and quicker to find out.
Another anecdote, since we're talking about Robert. So Robert was very well-known party person. He threw huge parties, weddings with the most gorgeous flowers, and very creative. And he and I have been friends for a very, very long time. And we used to go to baseball games together. So we were in his truck going to a Yankee game. And he was telling me about a wedding he was doing. And he was doing a wedding for this guy and this daughter of this man. And he said, "This is the man you should be with." And I said, "Well, if this is the father of the bride, isn't there a mother of the bride?" And he said, "I'm telling you, this is the guy for you." So he passes, and I meet this guy, and I think, and I was introduced to him by a mutual friend of ours, and I realized soon enough I met my soulmate. And so I'm at his daughter's apartment, and she's showing me her wedding album. She got married a few years earlier. And I look in the wedding album, and I see a picture of Robert. And I said, "What is Robert doing at your wedding?" She said, "Oh, he did the wedding for us. He did the wedding." And I looked at it, and I said, "Oh my God." And then I told the guy I'm with that this was such a strange thing. And then when I went to see you said, Robert said he wants you to know that he was responsible for you meeting.
He has been busy over there.
He's busy.
He's been. Can you imagine? He left you so unfinished, and he wanted you to find love.
Right.
It's so sweet because he was a fantastic creative being, very old soul, and funny.
Yeah, very.
So
funny.
I feel like especially you, when you were so sad or you were despondent about anything, he would find a way to cheer you up. And I feel he still does. Now we can rest a little bit. He got you settled down.
So now you're calling the spirits. So explain a little bit of what
how I work.
Where are these spirits coming from? How is this happening?
Well, I call them in. First of all, I have my space set up with crystals. I have to keep a certain energy level in there. Now, I also live there, so I have to work a little sometimes before reading to get the energy right. And essentially, I have a main guide, an archangel named Ariel, who's been with me since I came to this world, and other guides. And basically, my angels will talk to yours. And that's how the information, it's almost like if your angels are distressing or there's something someone's not getting, they need confirmation or they need enlightenment, they will get them into my room and get them to me. And I pretty much sit down, and it takes a lot to not have judgments, because I am a human, I have crazy days too. But when I get into the zone, I just kind of step aside. I'm a clear, conscious channel, meaning if some people go into a full-on trance, that's not me. If there was going to be a fire, I'd get us out of there. But I had learned to calm my mind down enough so that they can come through. And sometimes I see it like a ticker tape. Sometimes I see images. It comes through. I guess if I were tested, I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. I smell things sometimes. Everyone is different. And everybody, but they're so accurate. Me, I don't even know what to wear half the time. Getting dressed. But they are so precise and so accurate. And then I go, of course, because they brought the person here. There is a higher power trying to help us down here and enlighten us. And people, this culture, more than others in history, fears death, fears transition, because they think that there's going to be fire and brimstone. So,
the fear.
We're going to burn, baby.
And burn in hell.
And this, now, truly, I've not been there this week, so maybe there is a pit over there, but that's not what I have ever observed from the guides. And, back to suicide, there are a lot of psychics that say, oh, worst thing you could ever do. It will set you back lifetimes. And that is not what my guides say. If it is so hard to heal here and you are in so much pain, you shouldn't have to stay.
Yeah.
They take you home, you go to the other side, you get loved and inspired, and you can always come back and do it again. That's why now, more than any other time I've observed, there's so many suicides. I don't know if you hear about it a lot more.
This is a very high stress time, obviously. I think some of the symbols I want to talk about, and then I also a little bit about the description of transition that you've relayed to me too. So I remember one of the symbols that I thought was so perfect for me to have an understanding, a little bit of an understanding of what you do. So when you were talking about my mother, you were saying that you saw my mother in a boxing ring with her sister, and they were laughing and mock boxing, and they were talking talking about how they spent an entire lifetime fighting with each other and how unnecessary it was. And that was so perfect because, in fact, that was true. My mother and one of her sisters were just always at odds with each other. And the story of it becoming something they could reconcile on the other side and laugh about and talk about how unnecessary it was. And I thought that's a perfect visual for me to understand some of the symbols you see in the way you tell the story. So
they pick these analogies or these. I find the things that help the most is, first of all, getting someone into a peaceful place, but music, nature, being able to step out of lessons and just go hug a tree or take a walk, and nature, and meditation is wonderful, but there are a lot of people who cannot calm down enough to meditate. That's where music comes into play, because that can chill people out. You can tune people with music. If somebody's all upset, you bring them in, you put certain music on, because we all do have a sensory and a little bit of an ESP, but because each person vibrates at a different vibration, that my guides are very good at running the gamut. And there are those that are like, wing, they're just so, and they get it so fast. But then there are others where, Spirit will say, you need to get your transmission fixed. And the client turns, she goes, the light's been on and my husband hadn't done anything about it for weeks. Little things.
Yeah.
So it goes from the mundane to the soul affirming, the unbelievable. And my job at doing this, first of all, it's nothing I set out to do. I did work with someone to be able to tune it and hone it. And when I first realized I had it, I would see plane crashes. And then a day or so later, the plane would crash. And I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
This is not it. No, thank you. And then through a series of circumstances, and I took some class years ago called DMA, Dimensional Macrostructural Alignment, Left Brain, Right Brain, which really helped me learn to meditate. I met my teachers. It's like Buddha says, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And he took me under his wing and he says, the great ones never set out to do this. The ones that want to do it. Me, I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess. And I had a whole career, a very successful career, that all of a sudden kind of became a hobby, and my hobby became the career. But now I find I need both. I have to stay in tune in order to do the work. I have to stay healthy to bring the energy through. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There are days where I'm just like, I'm really tired, and I know that certain days I can do more than, a couple of readings. There are other days where I'm like, no, I need a break. Can't do more than
I'm
one.
Sure.
Especially now, with the energy being the way it is. And so much transition in my own life. One of my exes, who I was very, very close to, passed away in June. And he had a very bad bout with Parkinson's. So, of course, he really couldn't talk. He was only 67 when he died. But it was a long, drawn-out story. But as much as I was so furious with him, the love never goes away. It just didn't. And so that the day after he passed, The next morning, I hear this crash in my living room, and I walk out, and my painting, I have this beautiful sky painting, has fallen off the wall. And I went, okay, well, at least you didn't break any of my crystals. I know you're here. I knew you'd be here. Because, he knows the apartment very well. And then I was texting with his sister, and the closet doors opened. But it wasn't for me. It was for the family, for her to know that that happens. Because sometimes it's little dimes or it's little ideas. It's also if you are questioning the guides. New York is great for this. You could sit in a restaurant and overhear a conversation. And I'll never forget, I was contemplating what to do about some guy, and I overheard someone say, "He's just not worth it." I went, "Thank you. Okay." Thanks. That's good. But because they can move, if you're sensitive enough, you pick up the clues and you really feel the support. But it takes getting quiet. And that's why this world scares me a bit, because it's so loud and nobody's looking inward.
The quiet is critical. I mean, we have meditation here every day at 12:30, except for today. And we have music, and I found someone really great to kind of take everybody through it, and everybody's at a different level. And if you don't want to meditate and you want to lie down on a mat and take a half-hour nap, there's some snoring that goes on. But I think having a break in the middle of the day and then having silence is so important, first of all, for restoration and replenishment, but it's those times where you really can find information, and it could be inspiration, it could be anything. So since we're on that, you've told me several times this, and I know it to be true. Ever since I was a little girl, I would sketch. My mother was very vivacious, but the house was always sort of like this, and I was more introspective, and I would sit and sketch away and be in my happy place. And all of these beautiful sketches would come on my page, and they would just I felt like this, I was being flooded with all this creative stuff, and I always thought to myself, I feel this is coming to me, like I feel like it's a gift that I'm getting. And through all the years I've been designing, I've always felt original, and I never follow a trend or do anything.
It doesn't seem as you ever lose any ideas.
So the point is, they're coming to me on a regular basis, and I am so aware of it, and I always feel like I'm given this gift. I'm as excited about it as I get it, as I do it. And then you've told me several times, well, there are spirits that are giving you. There's like no question, I know it.
You have always been not just a trendsetter, but absolutely unique in every way.
And you
haven't tried to conform.
No,
which is the beauty of it.
And because there's this tremendous amount of inspiration and ideas and things that just come at me. I mean, it can come in the middle of the night. It comes mostly at those quiet times, which is why I'm talking about this. And if I have a quiet time, if I just sit for a minute, I feel like I'm washed with inspiration and ideas, and I have to grab a book right away or write something down, because I was like, oh my God, and then this and this and this. So and you've said it to me without ever knowing that this was something that I felt throughout, from my childhood to
I feel like in the womb you were doing this.
Probably.
I feel as though as soon as you came to Earth, because you must have been, and this happens so often, if somebody has been pushed down in another lifetime, they'll come back so early with gifts. You hear about these prodigies. That how do you explain a 4-year-old playing Mozart?
Yeah, that's pretty.
This is like you with your art and your sense of wanting to contribute to the world. But what I'm always in awe of, because you are a role model to me, I adore you.
Wow. Thank
You
you.
never have an ego about these things. It's about really serving. Even I'm looking at this beautiful art piece here. It's color. It's what we need. It's what you have stuff what everyone needs, but it's wearable art.
So the interesting thing is that you see these people, these
Yes.
spirits,
Yes.
and they are a part of your life, basically. I mean,
Well, they do. My guides are, but they kind of like take a broom and get the ones out after a reading. The funniest,
okay.
I tell this story. I always, as again, invite the spirits in, and so I was like doing that this one day, and there wasn't anybody. And I'm thinking, well, this is very strange. So it was a brother and sister that came, and I said.
goodness.
And so I was talking to them for a while, thinking somebody's got to show up here because what am I going to do?
Oh my God.
What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, there she popped in. I went, oh. I said, was your mother always late for everything? And they said, yes, always late. And I went, as below, so above. So I said, well, she's here. So then we could begin because
Yeah.
I've never had that happen. I'm usually just flooded and they're like, or I'll go into the bathroom and they start talking to me. I'm like, dude, I'll be out in a second.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'm all yours. But I have a doorkeeper that kind of keeps the riffraff out. And you see how I bless the space and how I tune in and get the highest frequencies and chant. And because the purer the space is, the purer the information will come through. Now everyone thinks, oh well, you know, she must have no problems.
Right.
You know, like it's not true. I have my own lessons. I
yeah.
have my own dumb things
Right.
that happen to me. And when I don't slow down, I pull a muscle. Something
Well,
happens.
that's
that
the
forces
universe
me to.
saying stop. Yeah.
But me, oh no, I'm
Yeah.
invincible. I keep going. You know,
we all.
I've got angels. I'm good.
Yeah.
But this is being in New York at this time. I mean, I try to spend a lot of time in the country
Yeah.
to reboot and to restore my soul, is what I call
Yeah.
it.
Well, you definitely need to because the amount of energy in that room with you is really, I mean, I feel it and I think, oh my God, how does this woman do this? It's really incredible. When I went to you after my brother died, because our conversation, at one time they would have put us away because we'd be so crazy having this comment. At another time, even maybe 25 years
probably
ago,
have.
right? At 25 years ago, people would have thought it was crazy. People are more accepting of this, but for those of you who know me to be a feet on the ground and don't think I ever think about these things, I want to share things with you so you can really understand the reason I have Barbara on this podcast. So as an example, my brother was in New York and I made sure I saw him every week so I knew he was okay or not okay, and so I gave him a job in the company so I could get him out of the house and see him every day. And then he had a lawsuit and made a good amount of money from it and decided to leave New York. Wouldn't tell me where he was going. I had no idea. And I begged him not to go. And he said, I'm going to go. And I knew the next time I would hear from him, it was not going to be a good phone call. But that's fate, right? That's the way life is. So I get the phone call, and it was from a detective in Florida who found my brother dead in his apartment and described everything in detail, how he died, what he did to create the death, where he was in his apartment, what he looked like, what was happening in his life at the time, where he lived, in detail. I went to see you, and you told me exactly the same things this detective told me. Exactly, from the pills and what the prescription and where he got it from, and the everything. It was beyond. And if I had any question, which I didn't, because in each situation you were just unbelievably specific, that to me, even to telling me what he was thinking about, and that he took so many pills that he felt sick to his stomach, and he felt sick even for a while after he had passed. And this woman told me about how many pills he'd taken, and that this whole the way his apartment looked, everything, and what he had in his refrigerator. You told me that, and she told me that, which was beer and no food and whatever, and
a moldy lemon.
Yeah. And so after that, I thought here's an example of proof that there's two ways to look at everything, and the ability for me to have this extraordinary experience with you to give me a little bit of peace about understanding what was going on with my brother. It was not happy, it was sad, but then we also talked through what he would want me to do with his ashes, and what he would want me to do, and how he would want me to proceed with it, and that he was apologizing. And that was so helpful to me in his passing. It took me a while to come to terms with it, but how to release him from this life, because I was still holding him down, was so helpful in that you helped me with that. But the details that you, and all of this goes back to how much energy comes through, and how much you participate in that. Yeah.
I mean, because it's almost like his broken spirit. He had a broken heart and a broken spirit that he wasn't going to do that if you were around. So that's why he had to go off and do his thing. But I do something called remote viewing. They actually use this, governments use this, but it's almost like when I'm tuned in, they show me the room. That's how I would see the pill bottles. That's how I would see everything, see him, see the whole situation. But when I tune to his energy, the epiphany of him no longer in pain there. Because, people suffer silently and they suffer loudly. But I just feel like he could not heal here.
Yeah.
And he was such a dear being. He wasn't a nasty person.
No.
He was just it's almost like a forgotten person.
And I think with all of the opioids and the crisis we have, my brother, and it was a victim of this, and his life really for forever was challenged, to say the least.
Judy Garland.
Yeah. And think about now.
Yeah.
I believe every household has a family member or someone near and dear to them that has an issue. I don't know anybody who's ever said to me, I don't know anybody who has a drug issue or an alcohol issue or some sort of issue. And so there's an understanding that we need to have about why this is happening. And so
the thing is, even if you get all of the opioids off the street, they'll find something else, because it's almost like there's been a tap that's been opened with all of this addiction stuff out there.
Really?
People, human beings are very addictive. They will get addicted to internet, porn, sugar. It's easy to get addicted. But some of these drugs really exacerbate. It's like finding a way to help. Al-Anon and AA and all that, they do their part.
Yeah.
But the person has to be willing to strip down and really want to change. So it's just a time, plus we have such 24-hour news cycles and all of this global information, we know it all the time.
It's overkill. And what do we know? That's it. At this point, there's such diverse information that it's better to shut it off and have the silence.
Well, apparently every 24,000 years, I've been told by my guides, the earth and we go through this huge upheaval. And their souls, our soul group, for whatever reason, we decided we needed to be here now. We like to come when things are cooking. We can fix this somehow, or make it better. But it's almost flared up so much that most of us are going, oh my God, how am I gonna?
Yeah.
And that's why it's going within, doing the little things you can do, because little things add up to be big things, and like enlightening the consciousness.
Yeah.
That's so much of it.
So,
I mean, I feel your brother it was his karma to come down and live this lifetime. And I feel like he was an inherently powerful soul and stuck in this situation.
Yeah.
And no wonder he didn't like it.
yeah,
very
no,
much.
he was brilliant. It has nothing to do with genius, intelligence. He was that. So and we've talked about this thin veil
Yes.
between the here and now and the hereafter. But do you think it's getting thinner? Do you think we're going into a time where more people will have not your ability, but more of a...
Yes, I would hope so.
Tell me what you
I think that the
thought this through at all and how you see that.
I try to think I'm one person, but I know that there are points of light all around the world, and I have friends that do this work. And some people work differently than I do, and some lecture, but all in all, they're trying to instill as much light and consciousness into people to wake them up. Now, this is a one-room schoolhouse, this dimension. We've got first graders and kindergartners, and we have advanced people. And so it's helping the young ones along to go, aha, to get that aha moment. And I just feel like everything has to flare up, like all this stuff with the clergy, all these things with corruption, all these pillars that people would always look up to and honor, they're all being struck down. So it's about really digging inside and knowing what is truth, what is your truth, how can we be kind to one another, kind to Mother Earth? Because if we mess up Mother Earth, it doesn't really matter what we do. Because if the sun is a star, if the sun goes out, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's light workers and being as old souls like you, like me, like most of my friends, we just do our part in a sense to infuse and help the collective whole. Like writing, watching what you put on television. I write as well, and I have a show, I have 3 shows actually that I've written with partners. And they're not mean-spirited. They don't have that darkness.
Yeah.
That, because we see so much darkness now. It's everywhere. And I can always tell what's going on in the world because the streets of New York will reveal. You don't have to look at a newscast. You don't have to look at a paper. You will see contentiousness, or you will see peace, or you will see quiet. After 9/11, remember how quiet it was?
Yeah.
You just people, because everyone is intuitive, but people don't always know what to do with it. That's why if you can't meditate, if your mind is too busy, hug a tree, put on music, draw a picture. Some people, I find, when they get in their cars to commute to work, that's their meditation time. Well, you can't close your eyes and go into trance, so you pretty much put on music, but that's when your mind is calm, that's when your guides can put ideas in.
Yeah.
Or insights in.
I think that's great advice.
It's however, because everyone's like, woo-woo, I'm going to be a guru now and be a meditator. No, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Finding your own forms is what works.
I definitely think so. So if more people have an ability to be aware of the messages or the signs or the sort of the little tips or guidance that the guides bring to you, I think that's a tremendous part of this shift of making people more aware, and I think everybody wants to be too.
Everybody has their guides. No one comes without them.
So describe that. What does that mean?
Well, sometimes, whether you're aware of them or not, they're there. And many of them are master teachers. We always have an angel. We have master teachers. We have loved ones from other sides that are over there that tag along just for fun sometimes or to help out. Sometimes there'll be a grandmother that you never met, but you actually met her on the other side, and she's a guide. But it's the kind of thing, when you're very quiet and still, and go, oh, what was that word? Or what was that story I heard? And then pops into your head. That's a very light form of channeling. And so it's asking, first of all, they don't even say they need for you to know they're there. It's just to start to realize in your life that you're helped. There's somebody there that can help you, or those ideas come from somewhere. Now, you have to be calm. The way I always tell people is, if it is something that's like an aha thing, then it's your guides. If it's something very dark, that's your fear. And people somehow don't always differentiate. But if it's something that's really scary, like, oh my God, I could be on a bus and the bus would, that's not your guides. That's a much lower thing. But it's finding peace. I feel like we need that more than ever right now. Just way more. I mean, what I do is I go back, I binge watch Netflix. And I was just returned from the 1700s. I was watching Outlander.
Oh my goodness.
Which I love, and they do a beautiful job. And, I'm sure I've had past lives there, pretty certain. But I have to give myself some space so that I can come back into the middle. Because if you're only like that, you can't go too far.
Yeah.
Like if I sit and write for a while, I'll get frustrated. I live near the park, so I'll go out into the park. I come back, and then the ideas are there. It's just learning in a quiet way again, we have people that are parents, that have kids, that have jobs, that have responsibilities. They don't have the luxury of that. They're not, kooky artist people that have time to do these things. But then at night, because everybody has to sleep, every human sleeps at some point, they will work with you, what I call night school. They will work with you at night. That's why some nights you go to bed and you're just so unhappy, and you wake up and you're like, oh, they've worked with you. And the same thing when you'll go to bed like in denial or very, very happy, and you wake up and you're just not settled. Because that's when they can do that. When I first started meditating, I always fell asleep. And I asked my spiritual teacher, I go, am I getting this? Is there something wrong with me? Am I just too tired? He said, no, because they take you out. It's a more profound healing. And you'll get it. You'll get it.
I was going to say, there are so many times when, especially when I started meditating, I would just go right to sleep, and I thought, why can't I get this down? But it's always a very deep, special kind of sleep.
And when I first asked about my guides, I remember that there's a twilighty time before you wake up. And I had been asking, because I would ask questions before I went to sleep, hoping they'd be answered in the dream state. And I heard, it is I, Ariel of the light. And I knew that was my guide. Well, the boyfriend I had at the time, he was getting a little nervous because I started getting really intuitive. And I turned to him one day and I said, who is the blonde in the red sweatpants? It was some chick he tried to pick up the day before in the park. And it's like, it scares guys. They go, okay, wait, now you're scaring me. Now, I don't read minds, but if there's something where I'm about to get hurt or bruised or anything, my guides don't hesitate.
I love it. That's
on
so
it.
great.
And then some days I feel like my poor guardian angels just go, oh, what's she doing now? What? But
that's very funny, because one of the things people who are super skeptical will say is that then, why can't they invest in whatever stock is going to be the best stock and be bazillionaires? And why can't they? It's like, because that's different.
It's not.
That's different.
What the gift
that's
is
not what the. Right.
If I remember going to Vegas, and I would sit there, and every time I had no money on anything, buy bread, boom. I honestly, especially roulette, I was like on it. But I realized first of all, I feel so wealthy in my, just for all that God, I trust that I do God's work and God's good to me. So if I were to put money on it, I would never win anything. But it's like at parties, that's why I really do kind of pass as normal. Because inevitably the person, hey, what's the lottery number going to be? Hey, who's going to win the election? And it's like, ugh, if I did have to concentrate on low-level crap like that, I would be miserable. And it's like, but people don't really understand.
Yeah.
But it's becoming, I'm seeing it kind of filtering in. When I first started this, you could never find angels unless you went to St. Patrick's to get angel cards, angel statues. All of a sudden, there came a big surge, and they have angel toilet bowl covers.
Everything.
I'm just like, I don't think that would be what I would want. But we got flooded with that, which was a great sign to me, because I know they're here.
Well, also that there's more of an acceptance, and I think part of the healing that we need to do, and the first thing, most brilliant thing you've said, is that we can't look to these people that would have fought for us and protected us in the past, like politicians and clergy. We have to look inside, and it's about how we are inside. And so the belief that there are angels is broader now, which tells us more people are understanding.
And they're in every religion.
Yeah.
That's what I love. Every religion has angels.
Every religion has angels and a God.
Yes. Why can't we all just get along?
And exactly. We all do have so much in common. I mean, we do, everyone in the world just wants to have peace and wants their families to be happy and healthy. They want calm. They want happiness for everyone. And we don't have the big things that are different. We all, the news today is all about Iran, and I was married to an Iranian for 10 years and went to Iran, and these are the most wonderful people.
Wonderful.
They're just
one of my best friends is Iranian.
They're just
amazing.
So fantastic, and they have a great sense of humor, and they love life, and they are so educated about everything, and their culture is so high. And the truth is, we have so much more in common with them than we have different. It's the way everybody, and I'm not criticizing a particular politician, I'm just saying the years of misunderstanding and where we've gone, and the ability to communicate and bring together is really important. And what you do is, by bringing the hereafter and the here and now together, you take away the fear of death, you take away the fear of loneliness, of being unguided. You take away all of the things that create wars and that create the lack of harmony we need. And I think having that grounding for people who want it, this is not for everybody, but for people who want it, I think it's so helpful.
Well, we live in such a fear-based situation. Like, I'm sure they told you when your brother passed, he was not alone. Mm-hmm. You never die alone.
Right.
You have your guides, your loved ones, whomever you warm to, they come, they cross you over. And people are like, oh my God, they were in a bog and they died and they were there. After they dropped the body, it's not that important. When
my mother was really towards the end, and knowing she was going to pass, and she would wake up from these little drifts, and she'd say, I was with my mother, and my mother's going to be with me. And she would talk about her mother all the time, and I thought, wow, that's so interesting that now she's already having this conversation, and obviously not as frightened, because there's such a comfort and love that she had with her mom.
Yes, and she missed her so.
So it really is, it's fascinating.
I mean, I've had a couple of situations when my grandmother I did have an effect on my Colonel father, whom I adored. there was, I don't know if I've told this story to you, there was a strong box, they used to call them a strong box.
Right.
And my grandfather died in 1986, and this is like I don't know, or 2001 at this point, and they'd never opened it.
Oh.
I said to my dad, "What's in there?" And he said, "Oh, we don't know." "What do you mean we don't know?" "Well, we never found the key, and it died when your grandfather died." I said, "Really?" So I kind of tuned in. Now this is just parlor room stuff, and I don't, because I like to think I do a higher work.
Right.
But I went, okay. So I tuned in, and I walked way across to the other side of the room, and there was a high boy dresser, and they said, "Put your hand in, go underneath, way in the back."
Oh.
There was a little cord. I pulled it out, and there was a key.
No.
So I walked over, and I opened it.
No.
Now the colonel. Now this was all for his benefit. My dad said, "How'd you do that? We've been looking forever for that. Your grandmother couldn't find it. How did you?" I said, "Well, Dad, that's why they pay me the big bucks." And he laughed, and he said, "Well, you're my little Jean Dixon." And so for after that,
that's so funny.
he wasn't afraid. I mean, I did a little thing on
Yeah.
CBS Sunday Morning, and I think he was afraid to tell the relatives. So he said, "I was going to be talking about being single in New York." Can you imagine? So I did this thing with Mika Brzezinski, and I did the reading and the whole thing. And he said, "I don't understand. None of the relatives called." I said, "I don't think they quite knew what to do with any of that." But it was getting him to get it.
Yeah.
And I had to do something so ridiculous
Yeah.
that for him to see. And after that, he was, what happened today?
Yeah.
But a lot before he passed was because he was afraid, and what's over there, and when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so I think that all that happened towards the end of his life for me to be able to guide him to the other side
Yeah.
with full knowing. And he does come to me.
Wow.
But the other funny thing is, many years ago, out of college, I was a flight attendant. Not very long, but I was on a flight, and it was the shuttle going to D.C.
Yeah.
And this woman pulled me over, and she was sitting in the front row. She said, "There's something about you. You're really special." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm not saying a tray of food, "Thank you." And she said, No, you're a seer, and you're going to be really, really successful. And I'm like, it was Jean Dixon.
Oh, that's so funny.
It was Jean Dixon.
That
and
is
she lived
so
in D.C.
funny.
And I mean,
No.
I was so young, and plus I'm in the middle of trying to make sure everybody gets a meal. Trying to be this flight attendant. And I
That's
just
so funny.
sometimes when you look at your life and you add up all these moments,
Yeah.
and all these are messages, these are all like guidance to show you the
Yeah.
path ahead, that you would never know. That's the beauty of it. If somebody said you're going to do this, I would have said they were crazy. They were absolutely crazy. But I bless her. In fact, now I invite her in to help out. If I miss anything, could you make sure I don't miss it?
Nice.
Because there's those that came before, and we bless them. And now I just feel like everyone needs to look within.
Yeah.
And it's hard to trust anybody, the news, the politicians, the whole thing.
So if somebody comes to see you, I mean, besides it just being an experience for you to be sort of presenting this information and all of this experience, but what if somebody comes in and they're just, cuckoo, they're just acting inappropriately, or they're scaring you a little bit,
To tell you,
like
in
how
all of
do
the
you
years-
deal with that?
This is what's so kind of miraculous. Just as I've never advertised and they bring the people to me, I've never had that experience. And it's rare because I work at home, can you imagine?
Yeah.
But
Plus,
no.
it's so
and
intimate.
If there is somebody cuckoo, they find like they miss the appointment, they don't,
Oh,
I'm out
really?
of town. I mean, they really do
Yeah.
filter who gets to me and
Yeah.
who doesn't, and who can come near me and
Yeah.
who can't. It's amazing how it works.
Uh-huh. The other thing that I think is
Good agents.
well, I mean, I
Can't
guess
get
you've
better.
convinced me that we all do,
We
and
do.
that it's really, we have to have a little bit of faith in that too.
And they can't live our life for us,
No.
and they're not supposed to dictate and tell us what to do, but they're there for comfort, for guidance.
Or just
Sometimes.
reassurance for certain things. I think I've learned from you that if I'm feeling a certain way about something and I'm going to make a commitment to it, or I'm thinking, should I make a commitment? if you pay attention, there's something that will
be there.
And the very interesting thing is you never think of, well, I'm going to get it in an email. Well, the truth is, I was thinking about something and it was sitting in my mind, and then I decided to just try to catch up with my emails. I think it was a Sunday evening. And the subject line of the first email I went to was just one of these selling some cuckoo thing. And it was the answer to what I was trying to make a decision about. And I thought, oh, I wonder, and you could ignore it and say nothing, but I let it stay as part of my experience with the decision.
It shifted your energy.
It did.
It shifts the energy. Yeah. And I think we're just so far removed. In the old days, it was a quiet time, and people had much more connection to God.
Yeah.
And their thought forms. Now, I mean, we're blasted, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
It's really crazy here.
I think another important thing.
So sometimes they have to yell at you and send an email.
Well, because it's so, we're on another dimension of communication. So there are times when I think about somebody, and there's an impression. I'm thinking about this person, it's very strong. I immediately send a text or an email saying, I'm thinking about you, how are you doing, whatever. And it's really fascinating that I do it more than I ever did. And it's a very interesting thing. I was just thinking about you, and somebody will say, I just found out I'm pregnant, or I'm having a baby, or they'll say something at that moment that's it's not just, oh, that's nice, thank you. It's like they return with something.
You picked up on the energy so beautifully.
Well, I'm sure everybody has that thought of somebody.
When you think of someone, the phone rings, it's that person. Everybody has that to a degree. Everyone has psychic ability. But it's knowing what's psychic and it's knowing what's fear. Or,
I think those are the two messages
delineating
you
which
hear.
is which. And it's so simple. If it's one of those, then it's not your guides.
Yeah.
It's your mind and it's your fear. And if it's, then that's your guides.
Yeah. I think being positive, and like you said, when you wake up in the morning and you feel this is it. You went to bed with it, and obviously a sense of humor and laughing cannot be more important now.
And I think that is what gets me through. That and friends that have known me a long time, but just finding the humor in silly, like the guy sitting there talking to a mailbox on my corner. I mean, you can't make this up.
No.
You're just like, and then he's waiting for the mailbox to answer, and then he answers back, and I'm like, okay, they're before the grace of God. But Mother Teresa, I was raised Catholic, but Mother Teresa, there's a movie called The Letters. Apparently she wrote lots of letters to this priest who she made him promise to destroy them. But like a good priest, he didn't. So how much she doubted. Because, she's not this like shining light that never had a bad thought. How much? And she used to say, I know God wouldn't give me anything I couldn't handle. I just wish he didn't trust me so much. So when you look at these people, then you realize how, even with a clear, pure belief system, how much we're challenged.
Yeah.
And so she found her way to go around it. But reading that, because history would want you to think, oh no, she walked on water. She was just, she never had a bad day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she wanted to tell people all the time where to get off.
Yeah. No, I'm sure she got annoyed a lot of the time. Barbara, this hour went by so quickly.
It did.
I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy to share you with everybody because there's so much of what you do gives people such peace of mind at a time, quite frankly, when the most fear is present, most misunderstanding of what life is about, and to have that clarity is
Yes.
really fantastic.
They send me people that it's almost like we plant seeds in them, and they can go back to some of the most dark places. And I feel like it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Maybe in the tiniest of ways.
Yeah.
But it's because that's why I get people from amazing who finds me.
Yeah. Well, once somebody meets you, then it's their job to be there to send other people. So you'll be busy for forever.
Yes, probably.
It looks that way.
We have to make
Thank
time
you.
for fun.
Yeah, thanks so
I love
much.
you.
Thank you for coming.